Hello and welcome to this special session on adapting to automation in commercial kitchens. My name is Keith Warren. I'm the Chief Executive of the Food Service Equipment Association, and we represent manufacturers, importers and companies who service all types of commercial kitchen equipment. And today we've got an expert panel together for you. So please do have your questions ready. We'll allow some time at the end of the session for you to ask them. And we'd be pleased to address any of the specific issues that you would like to know more about to help you in your day-to-day business. So let me introduce my panel. On my immediate right here is Richard Fordham from Key Tech Solutions. And Richard is very active within our groups that are looking at the connectivity of equipment, which inevitably leads to the automations of systems and processes within commercial kitchens. Then we have Stuart Dale, and Stuart Dale is from EquipPro, and Stuart has significant experience in terms of monitoring of what you could call some of the back of house systems, I think it's fair to say, Stuart, and specifically in terms of fire suppression and fire protection. Then we have Neil. Neil Painter is from Nando's, and Neil will give you an insight into the operational issues of adapting to automation within a commercial kitchen, what some of the challenges are, and indeed what the opportunities are, and they are significant. And we're going to be addressing that as we go through. And then on my extreme right, Sam Lee from Kitchen Brains, and Sam has significant knowledge through the work they do in their business with some leading food service operators in terms of implementing automation and within sites on behalf of key QSRs within the UK, and the business also works internationally. I think what is important to note at the outset is that what automation brings is a systematic approach to changing what you do within a site compared to what we may have done 10 or 15 years ago, and there's a huge opportunity. And there's a huge opportunity also, and I'll make no apology for saying this, there's funding available to help you do it. Use the government's money to do it, because if you buy equipment before the 31st of March, you'll get the 130% super deduction against the purchase cost. In the Chancellor's budget last week, they announced that was reducing to a 1-year write-off of the super deduction, but that's against a backdrop of increasing corporation tax. And get your accountant to do the maths on it, because the maths works out that it's the equivalent to the 130%. So there's never been a better opportunity to reevaluate and buy better to address the business needs of the future. So that's the plug for helping you fund all of this. Now let's talk about how we do it. What do we mean by automation? Richard, can I start off with you?
Yes, certainly. I mean, there's a number of different areas to look at, but it's putting systems in place that actually really sort of try and help and improve efficiencies for the operator, but through the targeted use of actual data rather than relying on hunches. So actually using the smart technology that is out there to feed meaningful data back to the operator that they can use to make those informed decisions. We've seen a massive change in emphasis over the last couple of years, particularly in light of what's happened with the energy prices in the last year. And that's very much been an energy-focused approach. So operators are now wanting to know really what their energy costs are, how they identify that and how they manage it. And we can use technology to actually give them that data to then help them make those informed decisions. So that for us has been a major driver in the last 6 to 8 months.
Stuart, can I pass it on to you? What does automation mean in your world?
Automation in our world, in the world of fire safety and business continuity is, yes, we're interested in protecting the kitchen as far as the fire suppression system goes, but also connecting to the alarm panel in the building. So one of our sayings, or maybe I stole this saying from Richard, is that if you can monitor it, you can manage it. You don't know what you don't know, so you always know that the system's good to go. Yeah, so that's my bit.
And Neil, perhaps you can give us some of the practical insight as a leading operator within the UK food service market. What does automation mean to Nando's?
I think primarily it's about how you drive efficiency. So there's obviously a number of areas that have hit the hospitality industry over the past few years, whether that be energy costs, whether it be labour costs, whether it be the availability of labour. But fundamentally, it's how you can drive your efficiency, but also then use it to maybe create opportunity. So how can you divert some of your labour into other areas of the business that might be either more enjoyable for the labour force, certainly a benefit for the customer. So maximising those opportunities as well.
Thanks for that, Neil. And Sam, you're working on behalf of some leading operators in terms of bringing automation in. What does it mean in terms of the service that your company provides?
Yeah, I mean, my journey started way back in 2006, and we was approached by a major brand to see if we could come up with a connected solution for the kitchen. 2007, we brought something to the table, and in 2008, we rolled that out. And it really concentrates on the middle of house with on the quality of food, the availability, and obviously waste. So three key metrics for us that we've used, and I've seen many improvements within those kitchens over the years. So it's at today, when I look at it, where we've gone from 250 stores to just under 1,200 stores today with our system. So it's been a real journey for us.
Thank you. Thanks to all the panel. So we know where we're starting from, and any of you who walk the show, you'll see a vast range of equipment that's got connectivity associated with it, the opportunity to automate systems and processes. But what's critical to that, and this is what I'd like the panel to focus on now, is how, as an operator, do you take a strategic approach to adapting to automation and implementing automation within a facility? Richard, what do you see should be the strategic moves on all of this, and how do you go about it?
I think there's a couple of things there to have a look at, and the first thing to point out is with anything like this, there's a number of different stakeholders that are wanting different information from within an operation. So if you look at a typical operator, I view it as there potentially being 6 sort of key pillars. So you would have the operational side of data that we're able to provide. So that may be things like temperature monitoring, it may be things like production schedules for the actual the kitchen itself. Then you can look at the financial aspect of it. So what are utilities costs, what are labour costs, what are costs and use of equipment. Environmental aspects play a massive role now. So we're looking at sustainability, we're looking at carbon footprint and behavioural patterns. And that could be staff, it could be customers, it could even be equipment behaviour. All of this links in together. You've then got the massive rabbit warren of maintenance and asset management and how you tie that in. So each of those are going to have different stakeholders all wanting different information, but it's how you pull that all together so they can access that from one point, and that at the moment is the challenge. So you have this massive data lake of information. How do we make that accessible and easy to use to give the operator the meaningful data that they can then use to make those strategic decisions that they need to? And that for us is really where we see this direction going.
And thanks. If I hand over to Stuart, from a fire protection point of view, it's not first and foremost in the operator's mind when they go in the morning, and it's how many staff have we got, is the food in, how many customers have we got? What does the strategic approach that's needed to address that in terms of fire protection?
I think it's all about education. From a fire perspective, you need to make sure that you have the latest technology and the right system in place. For example, there's many systems out there that you cannot monitor, and if you put the right system into place, you can actually monitor the system so you know if the system's going to go into fault, so you can actually do something about it. So it's more of a predictive and preventative maintenance scenario for us. So, it's identifying before there's actually a fire, you can do something about it. And also, you want the reassurance that if there was going to be a fire, the system's actually going to perform.
Thanks for that, Stuart. And Neil, I guess, as the equipment industry, we're great at using mechanical and electrical engineering skills to solve problems. It's how that transfers across to the operation. And I guess there is a different set of issues strategically that you need to address.
Yeah, I think the first strategic position you've got to take is probably the long game. You're you're never going to have a better opportunity than when you're either building a restaurant from new or refurbishing it to be able to try and undertake some form of future proofing. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is then to look at your equipment selection and make sure that that equipment is, fit for purpose, but also can, start to talk to some of the other systems that are out there. Challenge, I think, as an operator is that there's, everyone wants to try and show you what their system can do on their platform. From an operator, you really want all of the systems talking to one platform. We saw it probably over the last 10, 15 years with the way that maintenance has been delivered through procurement systems, and how people have become much more sort of open protocol, I suppose, in that sort of space. And I think strategically, that's where we would like to see equipment suppliers go. We want to be able to just sort of monitor all of our equipment in one space. We're never going to have the opportunity to employ lots of people to try and do that. So how well the exception reporting can be produced and the like, I think, is key. But yeah, from a strategic approach, it's very much about joining your whole team up. So from Richard's point, there are different areas. So whether it's your operations team, your sustainability team, your procurement team, you've all got to come together to try and determine, how you're going to go and come together to select the right kit going forward.
And if I may, just to ask a follow-up on that, Neil, because typically employment within the food service industry is high turnover. The age profile and demographic is very different. Is that a consideration and part of the process?
Yeah, very much so. So one of the things that we've seen more lately is, the need to try and reduce the late hour closes and try and move the labour to more earlier in the day. The workforce has become younger. We've seen a lot of people leave the industry over the last 3 or 4 years through various things, Brexit, obviously, then through to COVID. That's created its own challenges. And then in terms of attracting people to the industry as a whole, people want to have more flexibility in their working hours. So we've got to try and address all of that. And that comes with its own challenges around training. So how systems are used, how easy they are to train people to use them. Automation will take certain elements of that. So again, the more that you can reduce some of those activities will allow more time for managers, for instance, to concentrate on their teams. The last thing you want is a manager spending all of their time probing chicken, and recording temperatures when that sort of stuff can be done automatically. So how do you get them to concentrate their time on their teams? I think that's a key focus.
Great, thank you, Neil. Sam, that strategic approach, what's the ideal route?
Why do you have to give me the difficult question? I mean, like I say, if I just go back and touch on what Richard said, I mean, waste is obviously key today, which we want to drive down. And when I go back to saying availability, freshness and waste, they're our 3 key metrics. But I think the big one is that we all need to try and work together a little bit more, all be part of the same team, and that will benefit everyone at the end of the day. So that's the point that I would like to get to. And we've had some very interesting conversations while we've been at the show, and I would like them to continue, and then we can just see where we go with that.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for that. We have, I guess, the elephant in the room with all of this, with data and automation and connectivity, is cybersecurity. We can't let it go uncommented on, I think. Richard, how do you address that? Because it's a trust element between those who are seeing or producing the data and those that are seeing the data.
It is very much so, and I think as service providers, we have to make sure the systems that we have the levels of security that our operators need and require. The sort of catastrophic result of a hack or something into your system can't be underestimated. So we need to be able to make sure that is addressed prior to the event and all those security measures are in place. It's a difficult one because the people that are interested in that are getting more and more sophisticated, and it's something that moves all the time. So it's something that we always, as providers, have to be on top of our game to make sure that our systems are as secure as they can be, linking into, inevitably, if it's going into a third-party system, the operator's own platform, that is, we're not presenting any threat to them. So it's something that we have to be aware of all the time. It's absolutely critical.
Stuart, is it an issue in terms of looking at cybersecurity for the systems you're running? How does your business protect against the threat of misuse of the data?
In our industry, with the fire suppression systems, is the alarm panels that we communicate within the kitchen and with the fire suppression system. The technology, I don't like to say this, but in the world of the food hospitality industry, we're probably 10, 15 years behind with the technology. So the technology we're bringing to the party is tried and tested. It's not my area of expertise, but we would obviously work alongside the customer and work with their data and integrate it into our system.
And Neil, what's the operator's approach to cybersecurity? How do you manage it?
We've got a good IT team. No, look, I think, the reality is they are the experts, and it's certainly not. It's not where my expertise is, but involving them in the way that we build our restaurants, how we sort of install the right gateways, I suppose, to be able to, in the first place, get information out of the site. I mean, there's probably less challenge in terms of taking signals from equipment, because it can obviously be one way then, and probably lessens the security risk. And there's still an awful lot that you can do with that data. But I mean, we've certainly got some setups whereby we try and obviously keep the gateways separate from our core business operating systems, so that then that gives us that level of security and protection.
And does that whole process get in the way of implementing automation? Because it can be the techies maybe over-engineer what they think the solution should be for the practicalities of the need of buying a piece of equipment to report back what it's doing.
I mean, there's always the danger of that.
Yeah.
I think we're very fortunate that we have a brilliant team around us that does play in that space and are as keen as we are to see where automation can go, and actually at times are leading the way. So we're sort of sometimes playing catch up with those guys, and that's a great space to be in. I think, as been mentioned, actually at times we're quite a long way behind other industries. I mean, the retail industry has been sort of playing in that space for a very long time. So I think there's lessons that we can learn from them. But there's definitely opportunity out there.
Thanks for that, Neil. And Sam, cybersecurity, you're working with some leading QSRs. Yeah. They will be very sensitive to data issues.
Yeah, I mean, we have to work with them and meet their requirements. I mean, like Richard said, it's really not my area of expertise. But we work with those guys, meet their requirements, and I've not really seen any issues or any bad feedback from them. We have to do regular updates. So from our side, working with those guys, everything has really been fine from the beginning. But like I said, work with them, meet their requirements, and then there shouldn't be any issues.
Thanks for that, sir. So the equipment's out there. The systems and process issues can be overcome. We've looked at the operational implementation of a program. Now I want to focus on let's take a deeper dive into what the benefits are of automation. And I've asked each of our panelists to come up with a particular example, almost a case study section of the session, to give you some practical insight of where automation's been shown to work effectively and focus on the benefits that it brings. So, Richard, can I ask you to pick up on that one first?
Thank you. I mean, the one that I want to pick out, we do quite a lot of work with energy optimization, so we're reducing the sort of overall connected load of a kitchen, which has its own benefits immediately anyway. But the add-on to that is some of the additional data that we're able to get out of that, that you can then use, as I say, for making those decisions. We had a case recently of a restaurant up in the north of England, and we were able to identify just looking at their kitchen setup, a couple of bits of equipment sort of struck us. We were able to identify on the fryers how long they were turned on for and how long they actually cooked for. And over the course of a month, 6 weeks, both of these fryers were on for about 500 hours. But one of them cooked for 17 hours, so it's 3%. And the other one cooked for 40, so about 8%. The rest of the time, they're just ticking over, just burning energy all the time. And the operator couldn't quite understand why his energy bill was so high. We said, well, we've got a clue here. You know, look at your fryers. You don't need both of them on. Actually, you probably don't need either of them. Buy a small tabletop. For the amount of work you're doing, it's not essential. And that's the type of data that operator can then use to make a decision that is really going to benefit his business. But until you've got that data, you're acting on a hunch. So you really need to be able to extract that and use it for an actual benefit. And that was, for me, that was the real one that hit home, was just those figures, those percentages. It took us by surprise. So it's no surprise to the operator that they were paying a huge amount for their energy. So if you can help in that aspect, then that's what it's all about, really.
Thanks. And Stuart, can you give a practical example where you've helped with the fire protection element in terms of what an operator is doing?
From a fire suppression perspective, where we can help is the systems that we put in, not just in a kitchen, in the building, we can actually monitor, so they're actually pressurized systems. So where we have opportunities where, say if there's a drop in pressure on one of the tanks, the system will still perform, but we know that it needs looking at because potentially there's a leak on one of the tanks. So it's like predictive or preventative maintenance. So I guess we've got an engineer scheduling to go around and do the 6-month or yearly services on the system. But while we're out and about, we actually know that maybe one of the systems in fault, that yes, it will perform, but it needs some attention. Or in another instance, maybe that the system hasn't discharged, but we know there's a serious fault that we need to do something about it, because in some environments, all environments, the customer needs to know that if the system is ever called upon, it's actually going to perform, which is obviously part of the various legislation that we have to adhere to. It's obviously part of the servicing as well.
Over to you, Neil. If you
There's probably 2 or 3 areas that we've sort of focused on, and I suppose the first one takes back to that sort of strategic approach. We started working on a program of connecting our ovens up probably about 7 or 8 years ago, and we took opportunities during refurbishments and new builds to create the connections. And we got to a point whereby we could then make that leap of faith and do the investment to connect all of the other kitchens up as well, even though they weren't going through a refurb. So that means that with our ovens, not only can we gain HACCP data automatically from them, we can also look at performance. And our intention next is to actually feed programs down into them rather than sending an engineer around. So that obviously then helps us to be more agile with our menu development, and be able to, obviously gain from cost benefits as a result of that as well. Another area that we've invested in is variable extract, so lasers across our canopies, so that systems are ramping up and down the fan speed automatically rather than being set on a single fan speed. That has benefits, obviously, in terms of prolonging equipment life, reducing energy costs. If we extract at a certain rate, we've got to bring air in at a certain rate, and all of that air needs to be either warmed or cooled. So obviously benefits in and around that. And then something that Richard and I have worked on more recently was doing some analysis of performance of our front grills, our char broilers, to determine what the benefits might be in terms of a change of equipment. So there's lots of different areas that we can get benefits from, and it feels like we are really scratching the surface. There's various other opportunities, we've seen them around the show, that we can take benefit from as well going forward. I think it's just getting us into that right headspace, and then I think it'll act as a snowball, and I think there'll be more and more that we'll do in that space.
Thanks, Neil. I think what we're evidencing today is that what we've got here, it's the thought leadership. And I think the point you make about where food service is in relation to retail or automotive, where we've seen automation really add value by trading data effectively, which is what it is, and using it to best effect, isn't it? And Sam, in terms of that, you must have seen some of the practicalities. And I know when we spoke earlier, you were mentioning some of the waste issues that addressing. I mean, from one of the strands that you'd like to pick up on for us now.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you just a couple of examples. We'll look at a store that we installed in Switzerland, and after 3 weeks, we recorded all that data, and we see the benefits of dropping waste by 2%. Guest experience went up, and obviously availability was key there as well. So what our system does, for those who don't know, we're connected from the fryers in the middle of house to the back of house kitchen. And without dropping a sales pitch here, we are just exhibiting just over here, so you can just see what I'm talking about, just to get an idea. But it's a closed loop system. And like I say, it's been going since 2008, and we've grown and grown. And I've seen many, many benefits. We've even had some unfortunate issues of a bad product where we could track that down to what day, what time, what fryer, what button, just to see where we can get that data, because data improves process.
Thanks, Sam. We heard in one of the earlier sessions that in terms of the total cost of ownership of a piece of equipment, only 20% would be the capital cost. The other 80% being the operational costs, whether that's energy, service, utilities, etc. And I think we're seeing the merger of the CapEx and OpEx issue coming together, and automation is being a significant solver of that problem in terms of investment into equipment. I think allied to that, and a bit of a mantra within some of the design community within food service has been the fact that it's about getting 20% more output from 20% less space in the kitchen, because it's better to have tables and chairs front of house rather than equipment back of house. And again, automation has a part to play in that, because the other link of that 2020 issue is it's probably at 20% less cost. And certainly by managing the energy utilities, it's that 80% of the overall lifetime cost. The automation is a significant way of eating into that, I think. So, so there's a lot of good information here in terms of how to invest and use, as I said that earlier, that government money to invest in new equipment to change the future of what the industry is about. What I'm going to ask our guests next to address is what are the key bullet points of going back to the business tomorrow and implementing an automation strategy? What are the key things to address, the takeaway from the session, if you like? And please, if any of you have any questions, please do raise them at the end, because the purpose of this session is really to give you an insight which it'll be more difficult to get outside of what we're doing today. So use this as an opportunity. So please have those stored up for when we come to that point. So, Richard, if I can start off with you, can you just give us the key points that you would like to give the audience in terms of implementing automation in their business and site tomorrow when they get back to the office?
Thanks. I think the key one for me is from looking at it from an operator's aspect, and everything that we do as a company is driven by the operator. It's them asking us to do work on their behalf. And the key thing for me is it's reducing wastage. If you look at any catering operation, there's wastage, whether it's food wastage, energy wastage, labour wastage in terms of time. So it's being able to concentrate on that. Now, I just want to pick one of those, which is the energy side of things, because at the minute that is obviously critical in everybody's mind. Go back a year, people didn't look at their energy invoice. Now it's the one thing that they really pay attention to. So if we can put a system in place that reduces that and manages that, then that's great. And some of the systems that we use, we're able to lock appliances out, for example, to stop them being turned on at 9 o'clock in the morning. And what we have to do is to use that technology to try and drive that behavioural change. You can only do that, as I said, right the way through this, through having the data and the technical advances to enable that behavioural change. So that really, for us, is an absolutely critical thing. And that really is the only way that we're going to be able to drive that through the industry.
From a fire suppression perspective, what we can do with the systems that we can monitor, we can integrate them into the HACCP system. So with the systems that we install or we promote, you can actually see if the system's good to go as part of the HACCP. But more importantly, it can also be monitored, so we can actually date and time when something actually happens, because I don't know how many occasions people have just rang me up and said, oh, your system's just fired. I didn't touch it. There's always a reason why. So there shouldn't be false discharges, but obviously that's time and money, and what you don't want is the system to actually fire. So yeah, integrate into the part of the HACCP. So that would be a takeaway I would give.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, I think the key part for me is to make sure that you've got information that is quality and not information for information's sake. How you then navigate that information to be able to truly understand your business, because that's then when you can properly understand where the opportunities lie. Richard, made the point about waste, and yeah, I completely agree. It's about efficiency. The more efficient you are, the less you're wasting in all of those areas, and really that's the driver. So yeah, I think it's really about understanding all of your operation and how what happens in one space impacts in another. So if the guys are coming into your restaurant and they don't have the understanding of the impact that they can have, then actually it's a lost opportunity. So yeah, how you tie it all up.
Thanks. Point well made. Thanks, Sam. Over to you.
I don't think I've got many words left to say after these three guys, but we talk about implementation. We're currently installing one store a day right now, so it's a very busy period of time for us. We're working with a major brand, which takes up a lot of our time. But what's interesting, not just from the show, but very recently, we're coming outside of that big brand. We're looking at other opportunities. We can now connect to most appliances in the kitchen. We've just moved over to Wi-Fi because we was currently using the Digi protocol, but we're testing Wi-Fi. It all works, so that leaves us bigger opportunities, not just in the QSR, but in different restaurants as well. So, there's a big opportunity out there for us, and hopefully for the end user.
Thanks, Sam. So, anybody have any questions? Don't be shy. There must be some. I'm looking at you all expecting a question. Thank you, Nick.
Really nice presentation. Some of you were great and some of you were fabulous. You were all brilliant. So, my question is, you talked about integration of connectivity, and there you are, 4 separate legal entities going about your business, doing your business things. How are you going to integrate and connect and have a single platform so that users don't have to log into 27 different apps? How's that going to work?
Richard, do you want to take that one first?
I'll start that one. I think a critical part to this, I mean, as you say, the operators tend to want one particular or one platform to access that, what we call that data lake. And as you say, you've got these different stakeholders all wanting different information. They don't want to go to different places to get it. They want one portal to get it. Key issue that we found, and is being addressed, and more manufacturers are opening up to it, is they're opening up that data to be able to enable that to feed into a platform. There's some manufacturers or some equipment that won't. But what we're finding as feedback from the operator is the operator saying, well, if they won't, then we'll change the manufacturer because we need to get that data. So that's a critical thing. I'm not sat here thinking there's only going to be one platform like a Google. No, there's not. I've got a different platform to Sam and others. So, but it's dependent on what the operator wants. Will the manufacturer data or the external data be able to feed into that? And that's what we have to get to. And that's a challenge, to be fair. But it is opening up. There's no doubt about that.
I think it's very straightforward and simple. You're either on board or you're not on board. And as Richard said, if that supplier doesn't want to play the game, then you move on to another supplier that does, that's more proactive and innovative. And that's simple as that, really.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's about the operators coming on. The manufacturers coming on board. I said it earlier. We saw that in the maintenance space 12, 15 years ago, where everyone had their own maintenance platform. and then it got consolidated onto the likes of ProNet, Access Maintain, those systems. And I think the same will happen. I think it has to happen. I think also it creates an opportunity for manufacturers. How can you demonstrate you're best in class if you don't share that data? So I think there's a lot of positives that will come out of it. It will drive performance. It will drive sustainability targets. Ultimately, we're all after sort of what we can do in that space. All of our customers are going to be looking at us and seeing what we're doing. We'll be in the same space when we're looking at the people that we buy from as well. So yeah.
Yeah, not a lot for me to really add. I mean, I touched on it earlier that we're talking to people here at the show. We want to work with them because we see an opportunity for all of us. It will benefit all of us. I want those conversations to continue. There is some vendors out there, like Richard said, that just don't want to work with you. And as you said, Stuart, you move on and you look for someone else. And if that's the way it needs to be, then that's the way it needs to be. But, we're open for that, and that's coming from us.
Thanks for that, panel. And it's worthy of note that there's work going on at international level. There's the European Federation of Catering Equipment Manufacturers has a working group which we're the convener of as the FEA, which is working with colleagues in NAFEM in North America, looking at the international framework for the reporting of data from commercial kitchen equipment. And there's a product called OPC UA, which is but one framework, but under that there are 14 companion specifications covering all of the types of food service equipment you'll find in a typical site. So what this is starting to bring together is some communality in terms of, for example, all refrigeration should report in degrees centigrade every 30 seconds. Now, if that becomes a standard against which manufacturers put their products onto a market, then it becomes easier to assimilate that information into a platform, whether that's an operator's own platform, or it could be a designer or dealer's platform, or it could be a manufacturer platform. So there's work going on to try and provide that international standardization that will further help with the process. It won't change the basis on where that data goes, but if it's reporting the same data, producing the APIs to bring that data out of the machine into a platform is going to become very much easier. I think also it's worthy of note regarding the development of BIM. BIM is Building Information Modeling. It took over from CAD, which you'll be familiar with. It's the line drawing representation of a product. BIM is the fully rendered image of that product, but what goes alongside it is a whole set of parameters for that product. And as part of those parameters, the connectivity of the appliance is listed as a benefit there. And where this is going, it's about building a digital twin of the built environment. So whatever building is going up, there'll be a digital version of it. And what that digital version will do is take the data from the operational issues that will feed back in to then the next generation of that site. Now, for this to be fully implemented, I reckon it's probably going to be 20 or 30 years ahead. The process has started, but for it to become ubiquitous as a mobile phone in our pocket that we didn't have in our pocket 30 years ago, that's the sort of change that's going to happen. And that's where it's important to get onto the journey. And I think what it highlights also, and what we've heard today, is the vast amounts of experience and resource that there is around that you can draw on for what's happening today. And what I'd say is don't put off the decision, because actually it'll only become more difficult to make the decision because you'll be trying to catch up against a tide that's working against you. And that's the opportunity. And I'm really grateful to our panel for the depth of the insight they've given today, perhaps to help some of you get off the ground, or if you're on the journey, to get to the next stage of the journey. And certainly I know from the panel members here, it's an open door in terms of any discussion or conversations to follow this up. As the FEA, we have fea.org.uk. There's part of our website that's given over to connectivity. Feel free to connect with me or any of the team to ask any of the questions that you have, and we'd be pleased to help. But certainly there's a floor of manufacturers out there that are also willing to help. So if there aren't any more questions, I'll say thank you very much to Sam, Neil, Stuart and Richard. And thank you to all for your attention and your time this afternoon. And we hope it's been beneficial to you in finding a bit more about automation and how to implement it. Thank you all very much.